Good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Mirabal, and I'm with Melco's application team doing our DesignShop Talk today. If you have any questions while we're live, please feel free to type them in on the chat. I've got a second monitor over here since I'm all by myself at this location. We got other people online to help put links and other stuff for you. But anyway, type them in on the chat, and I will see what we can do to get them answered while we're live. So I will start off with the questions that were sent in ahead of time. Let me make sure both platforms are up. There is Facebook, and where's YouTube? Maybe. Nope, that's not YouTube. There's YouTube. Okay, so we're good. We're up on both platforms. Sweet. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get into the questions that were sent in ahead of time, and we will go from there. So let's see. What kind of grease is used for maintenance, and are there other suppliers other than Melco? What is the grease? It's red. It's EMB polymer, and then it's the red stuff. I do not know where or what it is. The only place I know to buy it from is Melco. What I would suggest doing is give them a call, give their parts department a call, and ask them about shipping. See if they can ship it a different way. That might be cheaper. So it might just be shipping a lightweight package through UPS, which I know from experience is really expensive. Whereas if I put it on the postal system, it'd be really cheap. So, that's what I would suggest is give them a call and see if they can ship it an alternate way. And good morning. We have Pammy and Lisa. I'll get to your question in a minute. And Leroy and Sherry, thank you for joining. Good morning. All right, so let's see. We did have a question typed in, so I'm going to do that. What is the best way to outline a shape? Okay, so you got a bunch of options there. All right, so I'm going to do shape. Okay, and why don't we make it script? I don't know, something. All right. So I got a shape. It's text, but it's still, that's a shape, or I can draw something else too if you prefer. Here, why don't I put no, I don't want a circle. Let's draw a triangle. All right, so I got text with a shape, with a word. There, now we can kind of see it. All right, so how do we outline this? So we got a few different ways we can do it. So you can come over here and you can go, this is a level specific, so object, generate, basting, primer. You can tell it to do a primer stitch, offset, I don't know, 30. Cool. So I've got a shape. I don't want that to be a fill. I'm going to delete one of those. I'm going to select that shape, hold the control key down. Yeah, control key is to change, shift is to add. So control and click on that. And you can see it did some goofy stuff in that corner that I'll have to clean up. But now I've got an outline. So there, I cleaned up the corner. Cool. All right, so that gave me an outline. Now, if you don't want the gap there, what else can we do? So if we just want an outline on an individual shape like that, so just on the triangle, I can select the triangle. Again, hold my shift key down and click on the single line center. All right, and that created an outline of that shape. All right, so if you don't remember that shift click feature, you can again click on your shape, and then this guy right here has change element from one type to another. If you click on that, now you can think about it. So I know I want to be a single line center, which is that constant width column. And do I want to add it? So add a border, or do I want to get rid of the fill and just replace it with a single line? Well, I want to add, so I'm going to click on add. And again, there's my shape outlined. All right, you can do that with the text too. Let's put it back to, delete that. Let's go to, I don't know, something else. There, let's make it that font. All right, so if you want to outline each letter individually, you can go to properties, go to auto borders, so you can always do it that way. So that will put borders on it. You can make them wider, whatever. All right, so that's one way we can do it. If I turn that off, another way, remember the shift click trick? So I can select that, say shift, hold the shift key on my keyboard, and click. Now I've got some borders and I can move them around wherever I want them. Okay, so you've got all that. So Lisa, does that help at all? There's a whole bunch of ways to do this. All right. You're trying to do a split front jersey design, Leroy asks. So what's the best settings for doing a zigzag tack down stitch? So let's delete this. We don't want that. Don't want that. Don't want that. I'm going to convert this over into Control to replace it. Click on that. Now I've got a placement stitch. Copy, paste, Control, click on that. So I'm going to turn this into a zigzag. So I really like using tackle. So that is a level dependent stitch type. If you don't have it, that's okay. So tackle gives you a nice zigzag, right? Whereas if I do satin and I change the density, so if I go into the properties, turn off auto and make it the same as my zigzag, it's more sawtooth like rather than here a true zigzag, but it still will work just fine. All right, so like I said, I personally prefer the tackle stitch because it's a true zigzag, but it doesn't matter. They both end up looking the same. Oops, I lost my questions to make sure. Okay. So best settings to use. Let's see. I would say a density anywhere from 17 to 30. Depends on what you're going to end up doing with it. So maybe 15 to 30, somewhere in that range. As far as the width goes, I think personally, I think 20 would be too small. So I would say closer to 28 to 30, somewhere in there. So maybe 25 to 35, somewhere in there for your zigzag for the width. And then you can always, if you're having problems with the fabric kind of lifting and the zigzag not being on it, you can always use these features here under your single line to skew it one way or the other. So notice this case here is going to be more on the fabric than off the fabric. Whereas if I skew it more this way, it's going to be less on the fabric, more on your shirt. So I would either do center or skew it more onto your actual applique fabric. So Leroy, does that help at all? So what settings would I use? I would use tackle somewhere between 15 and 25. Yeah, maybe 28, 30. So, oh, that was fun. Let's put it back. Maybe 30. And then I like 17. That's nice. All right, and then on the width, anywhere from 25 to 35, somewhere in there. Okay. We did get you a link. So Lisa, there's a link in there on doing outlines. Okay. All right. Any other questions typed in? Let me quick scroll and see before I did that. And Leroy and Lisa, let me know if that didn't answer your questions and I can go back and do it some more. All right. How do we make sure we have the most up-to-date version of all the softwares? Okay, so if you go to, Melco, all right. So if you go to Melco service, melco-service.com, click on the FAQ, and then version. Melco software versions, first thing that comes up. And it shows you where to find it, and then it gives you all the latest versions down here for all the different things. So you can find if you have the latest version or not. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? All right, so I'm going to close that. And we did get you that link, so you don't have to search for it. You can just look for it in the comments. I'd like a video on specific DS features for the basic V11 lettering package. The knockdown stitch, I don't believe is in that, but let's go look. I have to change my stuff, so you give me a moment. You guys can't do this. I can do this with the version I have. I'm going to go make this the lettering version. Yeah, I know. Go away. Yes, I know. Oh, come back. I have to All right, so now I'm in lettering. So all the insert for the knockdown or the primer stitch isn't there. I'm not even sure. I don't think this is just for lettering, so you're not going to have a way to be able to digitize the shape to create that that primer stitch, that knockdown stitch. You're not going to have a way to do it in this version. So you've got to have one of the digitizing softwares, which is any of the other ones. So whether it's Vector or any version higher than lettering, there would be a way to do it. The Professional is going to give you the easiest way to do it. But, you know, you can do it in the other versions. It just takes more clicks. I'm trying to think, is there any way I could force it in this? But I don't have any of the tools necessary. So this is really just going to give you the ability to create lettering, change the fonts, change the settings on your lettering, arc it, combine things, those sorts, combine your letterings. That's all you're really going to be able to do with this version here, which, I mean, you can do a lot with just merging designs together, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, you're not going to be able to create that primer stitch in here. Tools. Now, with that said, there are some vendors that sell shapes that, you know, pre-digitized shapes that do the different trapunto type primer stitches. So you could buy those and just layer them, right? So how would you do that? You would insert, I don't have a shape here, so I'm just going to insert a design. But we're going to pretend. Maybe there's shapes in here. Wait, let's go back. Let's see if the graphics? No. All right, I'm just going to go to the ones I know. No. So I can, if you buy one of those shapes or you have one available, you can always insert it and then put your lettering on top of it. Okay, so that would be one way to get around it. But you can't create them by yourself in here. Tools, security, professional. Yeah, I think you need Vector or Professional to be able to do it. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Editor will let you draw shapes. Maybe it will, and I'm just confused. All right. So what other questions? Let me close this because I think I'm required to close it too. Yeah, I know. Go away. No. All right. Other questions? Sorry with the random clicking today. Yeah, that knockdown is only available Editor or above. Why does OS move my design in the 16 by 17 Mighty Hoop when I send it over to, yeah, okay. So here's the picture, just so everyone can see. So you're asking, I do it in DesignShop like this, so it's centered. And when I put it in OS, it's like this. Why is that? Okay, so this hoop, the 16 by 17 hoop, is too large for the machine. Okay, you cannot sew in the full sew field. In fact, it's this part right here, from this dashed line down, that you can't sew on. So everything below here, you can't reach within the pantograph of the machine. It doesn't go that far. All right. So, and I just zoomed in here so you could see that. So when you send it to the OS, what it's going to do is it's going to center, when you tell it to center, it centers on the available sew field. So in this case, the available sew field for this hoop is this dashed box. So notice it's centered on that box. So that is what's happening. That's why it's positioned up there. Yes, you can move it down. I can't deign to guess how much that is, but that's as low as you can move it before it's going to end up maxing out your pantograph. If you try running it past that, it'll jam things up. Okay, so yeah, that's what's happening. That's why it's doing it, because it's centering it to the available sew field. So yes, DesignShop is set up where you can digitize not only for Melco machines, but for any machine. So, if machines are able to use that full thing, other equipment, then yeah, you can center it in there and create a design to sell off to someone else. That's cool. But when you send it to our machines, this is the available space. So it's going to center it there. All right. What else? Okay. So those were the questions I had sent in ahead of time. So I'm going to go back to my thing and see if I missed any questions. So Leroy, great. I'm glad that helped. Great. So thanks for joining today. What's crazy? MK Buddy says that it's crazy. That's cool. I'm crazy. I ran a marathon this past weekend, and it was great. All right, I'm slow, but I did a 12-minute mile for the whole 26.2 miles. It was great for me. So, anywho, what other questions might you have? Well, so that's the thing. So that hoop, this 16 by 17 inch hoop, is not designed by Melco. It's designed by an outside company, and they want it to work on every machine in the market. Cool. So they design it to fit, as big as it can on different machines, and then they only want to make one hoop. So then they make arms and arrange it so it fits on a bunch of machines. So they made it to fit they designed it to have brackets that fit our equipment. That's cool, but we physically can't sew that far. So it's too much hoop for our machine in some respects, but it's not like Melco designed it just for Melco. No, it was designed by a third-party company that they want to make money, right? So they want to make it to fit as many machines as possible, not just Melco machines. So if they can cram it on our machine, they'll happily do that, which, I get it. What other questions do we have? I'll hang on for a bit, see if anyone else types anything else. I don't see any other questions coming in. I will wait just a minute or so more in case someone's frantically typing and I don't accidentally decide to sign off when you guys are still typing away. I don't know. It's holiday season in full swing right now, so hopefully everyone's having fun doing that sort of thing. I know I coach crew, so I coach middle school crew teams. The sculling and sweep boats like you see in the Olympics. Not that middle schoolers are Olympians, but and we have our middle school regatta tomorrow. So there's like 160 boats worth of children. It's going to be exhausting. I get to be there at 5:30 in the morning and all day, middle school. So it'll be fun. I love it. So, and then back to sewing and sewing and sewing. All right. Well, I don't see. Oh, someone just typed a question. Let's see what it was. Any helpful hints for stitching on wool leather jackets? Okay. Leather jackets. I was like, wool leather. That doesn't make sense. Wool leather jackets. Those woolly blankets. Those jackets are really heavy. So I would consider picking up your presser foot a little bit so it's not jamming into it as much. Upping your actifeed is going to be helpful. It's a thicker material. So remember, when you get thicker, you're probably going to need higher actifeeds. And short of that, it's really, every time I do them, I just hoop and go. I don't even think about it. But the only things I routinely do is pick up the presser foot and up the actifeed. MK Buddy asked about my rowing. How long have I been doing that? Coaching, this is my first year actually coaching. I've rowed for a few years now. And I've coached adults for a few years, but this is my first year coaching youth. It's so much fun. But it's so funny when you kind of see the light bulb and they do something really nice for a few strokes and then they're over in the weeds playing in the water and you're like, okay, well, we did something good today. All right, sewing on leather. How hard is that? Leather, it's a hide, right? So the thing with sewing on leather is you can end up tearing the skin, tearing the material, so it pops out. So when you sew on leather, you need to make sure you're not doing super dense designs, and that you have not a very heavy stitch count, like real dense, because it'll end up rippling and whatnot. It's really easy to practice if you get marine vinyl and kind of run designs on that. It's not 100% the same, but it works out where if it runs decent on marine vinyl, then you're going to be fine mostly on leather. So I just take it a little slower than normal. Again, have a reasonably high active feed, maybe a point or two higher than I'd sew on regular fabric. I do slow it down, and typically I'll run it on marine vinyl first, just because leather tends to be expensive, and I'd rather not tear up someone's expensive stuff if I could have just saved it by going, oops, I should have fixed that part in the digitizing. I turned down a job to embroider on a loose knit blanket. Could it have been done? Yeah, you can. So one of the things you can do with loose things or stuff that has a really open, you can go and either get, if you treat it like freestanding lace, then the design's not going to come apart and it will hold together. Another trick you can always use is do a primer stitch down, and you can even get that organza. What is that stuff? It's like the netting you see over veils, so that sort of thing. So you can lay that down. It rips up when you're done, so you can do a border around it. But again, that gives you more material to hold everything together if you don't want to worry about so much of creating a nice freestanding lace type design where everything's connected. But what I would suggest is either use the primer stitch, treat it like an applique, and put some fabric down on top of it and sew it down. So then you're not worrying about it. That would be another trick to use. Yeah. But yeah, you can do it. It's just, you've got to think about the fact that there's not much material there. So you're going to have to make sure it's all connected so that when it's not on material, it's going to hold together, right? So how do you manage that? That's the thing you have to think about. Okay, let's see. We did get a link for you on sewing on leather, so check that out. Do you have any tips on blending? I need to do a mountain and would like it to have a blended look. I know there's several videos and even a blog article that Nate did several years back on blending. It's really about, the best blending is going to be done when you have the physical threads in hand and you can make sure that you're kind of walking down that saturation. They're actually going to blend. But basically, you kind of start with the bottom layer being more thread, and each layer coming up that you're blending over is going to have a higher and higher density, because that's going to have it sinking in. Where if you did a low density on the bottom and then high density on top, all you're doing is covering up your work, right? So the key to successful blending, in my opinion, is color selection, right? So there's a lot of tools, and we have a lot of videos we'll try to get you the links for on blending that were done. But it's what makes the blends look really nice is making sure that the colors are a true gradient. I mean, if you just put a red and a blue, yeah, it'll blend, but it's not going to look natural. Whereas if you've got stuff kind of fading into it, that's really going to be the difference there. And that's just color selections. But yeah, you can take anything, right? And if I copy and paste that, go into the properties, go to the effects, turn on custom density. Let's do convex, apply, give it another color, and let's turn off all that underlay because we don't need all that for what we're doing here. Apply. So you see, there's all sorts of things you can do under effects with this. One thing I always like to do is I like to turn on auto apply and just start moving stuff around and making changes largely so I can see how my blends are being affected. if I change this to 10, is that better or worse? Well, it's too dense. Maybe I want that to be 40. So I like to play with it, and so I can visually see what's going on and decide, is that what I wanted, or did I really want to reverse that and make it do something else? Okay, so you can use the ones that are already on here. So this is linear or convex. Don't forget you can reverse it, so the outer edges or the inner edge. So there's a lot of things you can play with to get it to look nicer. Now these edges, anyone remember what fixes that up? So that's just where it's going from one row to the next. So it can't do a full stitch length to get to the edge, so it just jumps down to the next. Well, if you turn on Trapunto, that will make every stitch go to the end before it goes on to the next row. And let's move those starts and stops out so we get rid of that. That's cool. Okay. So yeah, blends are a lot of fun, but it's really down into your color selections. And we did get you a link on blending. Any tips on digitizing fleece? Do I need to use a topper or a primer stitch? Yes. Definitely a topper. Primer stitch, it depends on what you're doing, right? So if you're sewing, a big fill design, probably not. If you're going to put lettering on it, if the nap on the fleece is low, yes or no. If the fleece is one of those really bumpy things where the texture is going to go eat it, then yeah, you probably would want a primer stitch, right? So again, that's object, generate primer, tell it to be a primer, whatever border you want around there, you'd select it, poof, done, ready to go. And I personally recommend, or it's not that I recommend, I like making that primer stitch match the fabric, right? So that way it's not a big eyesore of a shape underneath it. Again, that's just what I like. So if I'm sewing on blue, I'd use blue. If I'm sewing on white, I'd use white. Those sorts of things. But topper, yes. Always use a topper because it's easier for me to explain on towels. Towels have all those loops that stick up. It's like a ton of little loops. Well, if you're sewing across it, not all the time is your digitizing or your thread going to hold that loop down. Occasionally it might stick through your between the stitches. Not a good look, right? So if you put a topper down as it sews over, those little loops can't stick their noses up through your stitching as you're going. So it holds it all down. Once it's in, it's not like it's going to pop through. So making sure you have that texture locked down and you sew and get it to go in clean, it will look nicer that way. So yes, I would use a topper. If you're not going to use a topper, definitely use a primer. Okay, any other questions? Scrolling to see if I missed any. We talked about that and that. Cool. All right, y'all. I guess we will call it a day. Yeah, I don't see any other questions coming in, so I think I'll plan on heading out. Next week we're going to aim for Thursday to see, again, anytime you see my little cover sheet posted on social media, this thing right here, that's where you can post any questions ahead of time in case you want me to try to digitize something ahead of time. I can do that. But I'm going to aim, today's Friday, so I'm going to aim for next Thursday. We're down a car, so a deer decided to take out my my husband's car this week, so yay. Who knows what my schedule is really going to hold, but right now I'm aiming for Thursday. So you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you next week. Have fun sewing. Happy holidays, everyone. Bye.